Welcome to Fear and Greed Summer Investing Series, brought to you by Vanta, specialists in compliance-led growth. I'm Sean Aylmer. Selling property this year, it pays to keep across the trends. Alice Stolz is the National Property Editor at Domain. Alice, welcome back to Fear and Greed.
Thanks, Sean. Great to be here.
What are we looking at for the next 12 months? What are the trends we should be thinking about? I don't want to talk about elections, but does the election, the fact that we're going to have a federal election in the next 4 or 5 months matter?
For the property market, I think it's a distraction. It's going to be something that gets in the way of people being able to buy and sell. Everybody will become monumentally fatigued by it, but it's something that has to happen. Thankfully, we need this in a democracy. But I do think, though, it often holds people back from making a decision. And I think also if there is a change of government, that also makes people think differently and perhaps a little bit more philosophically, optimistically about what's ahead. We've seen in the US, there's this idea about the Trump bump, this idea that areas like Palm Beach and Florida and that are kind of having a bit of a renaissance because obviously that's heartland for Trump. And there's also talk about tax reform and housing becoming cheaper in the US. We haven't seen, obviously, yet any meat on the bone of how that's actually going to play out. But there is that sort of, I guess, halo effect of when a new government comes in, a bit of excitement and curiosity about what might happen. So we'll have to get through that. We also hopefully will very soon have rate cuts, and that will be something very much to look forward to. I also think markets such as the Sunshine Coast, the Gold Coast, that sort of golden arc, people are calling it now, is just going to likely just keep getting bigger, fatter and more expensive. Now, that's kind of incredible when you think about an area that used to be a bit sort of daggy and where grey nomads, respectfully, went to.
And schoolies.
Schoolies, exactly, both ends of the spectrum. But now, the property prices there have just exploded over the past years. There's a lot of international investment coming there. There's a lot of migration, interstate migration coming there, a lot of Brisbaneites moving there. So I think we're really seeing a shake-up of the prestige markets in Australia, and that's moving around. They're not the traditional sort of eastern suburbs or north shore of Sydney or just the Toorak areas of Melbourne. That's really evolving where we're seeing that prestige part of the market.
What about population growth? We've had plenty of it in the past couple of years. What does that mean for the market, and what do you think will happen in the next 12 months or so?
I think population-wise, when we see that growth come in and those people go to regional areas such as Geelong, Newcastle, Wollongong, we will definitely keep seeing prices rising there, and many of them will become million-dollar areas in that process. I think also we will hopefully begin to see brave governments actually get the infrastructure ticking along there to keep supporting that growth in those areas. But I do also think we'll see cities such as Melbourne that really have to be stretching out further because of the affordability thing there. We know Melbourne's median's around $1 million, a lot more, 1.6 million in Sydney at the moment. So particularly newly arrived people find it very hard to set up camp in Sydney, and they're more likely to choose cities such as Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane. And I think Melbourne is more interesting for them because jobs-wise, employment-wise, salary-wise, it's kind of like Sydney. Having said that, just a lot cheaper.
What about first home buyers? I think, in the run-up to the election, we're going to get lots of policies. We know the government, as it stands at the moment, wants to build about 240,000 homes a year. We're nowhere near that. Do you think that we will get, infrastructure spending, government spending to help particularly first home buyers?
I hope so, because I do think things like that are actually what's going to sort of fundamentally shift the way we think about it. I think we are definitely seeing a trend, though, in the sort of the way that first home buyers are approaching that idea of the great Australian dream. And I'm sort of personally quite grateful that they are finally sort of smelling the coffee and going with it, because they're now evolving what they want from a property. Once upon a time, even a couple of years ago, they wanted a quarter acre block, a picket fence, etc. And now many are compromising and saying a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment in the location that I like is better than nothing. And we're seeing them make that compromise, those who want to, but it still remains an incredibly tough time to be a first home buyer, and the hardest it's ever been to buy property in Australia at the moment.
Alice, I've got to pick you up on being a property person. Smell the coffee. Most of us smell the roses. You smell the coffee. That's because of your job. So
absolutely.
What's the top tip for a buyer wanting to get into the market? Or maybe it's someone who's downsizing. Maybe it's someone who's suddenly got an extra couple of kids and need a new house. What's the top tip for 2025 from Alice Stolz from Domain?
Look, it sounds really boring, but I think you have to do your research and due diligence. I'm talking your own crazy, pimped up, amped up spreadsheet, which has got your own data about what's happening auction-wise, clearance rate-wise. Track those properties yourself. I think you really need to rely on that to see what that market's doing. Also have your roadmap for your 5-year plan. Where do you want to be in 5 years and how are you going to get there, I guess? And Sean, it sounds a bit superficial here, but also get on board with this new trend that's hitting property in 2025. It's the cozy trend. And this is not about lots of cushions and throws and everything. It's about creating this unique cocooning environment in your own house and embracing that individuality. So I think we're going to definitely see more of that. And I kind of like it because I think you do you. And I think that's a better thing than FOMO, which has been fueling our markets for way too many years.
Fantastic. Alice, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Sean.
That was Alice Stolz, National Property Editor at Domain. Remember to get your own independent advice before making decisions. This is Fear and Greed Summer Investing Series brought to you by Vanta. Vanta automates compliance for frameworks like ISO 27001, SOC 2, CPS 234 and Essential 8, saving time and money while building trust. Join over 8,000 companies like Atlassian, Dovetail and FireAnt managing real-time risk. Get $1,000 off at vanta.com/fear and greed. I'm Sean Elmer. Enjoy your day.